Hi, welcome. This is EDSC, and this is the recording for our week 3. I am Professor Bobo. Currently, the students are in breakout groups, reviewing Tier 1, 2, 3 supports, kind of collaborating on a variety of different supports.
So I'm the resident sub, so I that's my role at the school. So whether I'm in a classroom or not, I'm getting paid. So
Okay.
That's cool.
yeah,
And how many counselors did you say there are?
there's 3 academic counselors, sixth, seventh, and eighth, a lead counselor, there's 2 CWA, there's a attendance counselor,
Oh, wow.
and there's 3 PSWs.
Got it.
And we have
So
five.
you were able to do that tier 1 application to the SEL.
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't started my practicum, but I teach at a K to 6th grade school, and we don't have any counselors at all. And we have a counselor that comes from an outside agency, which the school board hasn't approved yet, even though she was there last year, but she just works with students in crisis. So that's, to my knowledge, the only support system we have for that. And then as a classroom teacher, they've given us access to Second Step, which is a SEL curriculum. It's been in the box with some of our other new curriculum. I haven't actually started teaching it, and I haven't heard of any other teachers teaching it as well. So at my school site, we only have, the one person who's directly for crisis only. So
Real quick,
Blair, so
is somebody
second step,
jotting down stuff or no?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'll put
I
that.
observed tier 2 today, some tier 2 college and career support.
Okay.
I observed a counselor presenting to an AVID class about college and career. And it was interesting, even as we were walking to the classroom, the counselor said, these students are all going to get this presentation with the whole senior class this next week. She said, but we start with a focus presentation to that class of 35 students and relay all this information. And then they'll
Blair, was it you that were note taking? Were you able to get all of that? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay, cool.
All right, perfect. So let's take a look at that. Let's share out, and you guys can, jot notes on your own as we discuss it. So, what in group one, what were some of the tier one school-wide activity and programs, academic, college, career, social, emotional?
I think we were group one, yes. So we said one person who is at a middle school said that currently they're providing tier one support, which is a school-wide program where they're going to every homeroom class and doing an SEL lesson. And this week it's emotional regulation. And then for our tier two indirect support or indirect support is they're doing suicide prevention presentations. And if any student is reactive, like shows signs that they might have something that they need to speak to, then they move them to a tier three. We also talked about that one of the people in our group observed a counselor presenting to an AVID classroom about college and career readiness. And then at my school site, I said that we don't have any counselors, but we have an outside therapist that is slated just for tier three cases. She only works with kids that are needing the most support in the school.
Okay, excellent. Group two.
We can go. I think that was us. So school-wide program, there's individual speakers. One of us said that there's a social emotional lesson at each of the classrooms every morning. Emotional lessons. Yes.
Her internet's on and off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so is mine. I hope it's
right away. The referral is the step one is always to do an individual plan. My internet. Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Like a
Yeah.
Verizon commercial. So the MTSS, like the first tier for us is right away meeting with the student and creating an individual plan, depending on what their needs are. Another one for the school program is they have four advisories a year where they teach social emotionals. They have lessons. They have individual speakers depending on, I don't know if our individual person that wants to talk about this. They have like sex ed, drug and alcohol abuse, depending on the individual speaker. Tier two, indirect support, social emotional counselors. I added with our teachers, we do, I don't know, depending on each school, safety care training. They do the verbal portion of the safety care training as far as the staff education. There is a physical aspect, but they always do this, the verbal, where you can de-escalate a student. Direct support, conflict resolution. The art attendance specialist does a check-in, check-out. There's group counseling. If a student is suspended, there's always a safety plan or return to school plan before they re-enter the school. Tier three, outside referrals, PVPSA or for drug and alcohol, and they hired full-time mental health counselors.
Okay, excellent. So what I wanted you guys to kind of try to focus on or get information about from one another is that, so your tier one supports usually are your district and school-wide activities, okay? And that could be in a range. And for us, we have it in the academic area, the college and career area, and we have it in the social emotional area. I heard a lot, both groups talk about second step. Second step is a tier one intervention. And most districts will purchase this and teachers teach it because it is easy to be taught, it's scripted, and it gives activities, but it also goes through the social emotional. So that's the tier 1. So by the time a counselor comes in, students have some background or some level of knowledge on social emotional learning, and that's what the second step provides. So districts, use money to purchase that. And then the activities would be all of your, events and things that you have on campus that all students have access to, that no one is, it's not a reward system or anything like that. The individual student planning for grades 6 through 8. Obviously, you sit down and work with the student on the classes and courses that they need, their electives, their choices, and all of that is considered a tier 1 support for students in grades 6 through 12. And then we also have our core curriculums, our district core curriculums in those areas. And I use my LCAP funding to purchase any type of counseling core curriculum that's supported by CASEL with, that's data driven and to help guide them. Now, the other thing that you decide as a group is what data will you use to collect to determine who needs what for those systems. So like for the first tier, everybody gets everything. And then in the second tier, you're collecting data in these various areas. So every school will look different. You mentioned a lot of different supports for suicide, college and career, and then also academic supports. And in those areas, how you collect your data depends on your school site and your district, because they want to know that your next group of kids, that you just didn't choose them just because, and this is how we used to do it. We would get a referral and then we would just create a group. We really want to support that there's more data that we've collected to support that we're going in this direction, for SEL, for college and career, or for academics. Okay. And then in the final group, and we do small groups for tier 2, small groups and individual counseling, and then also outside referrals. Sometimes it's a family issue, so we don't bring the families in and work with them in collaboration. We communicate our counseling, what's happening. We have in our counseling sessions, we keep confidentiality. So we tell the parent signs for us to work with the student, and then we share with the parent the goals that we're working on with that particular student without revealing the exact conversations that are occurring in our counseling sessions. And so that's where we kind of communicate and collaborate with the parent and guardian on that. And then if it's a family where the parent needs to be participatory and maybe learn strategies as well, then that's when you'll do your outside referral to an MFT, or perhaps you have someone working on your site who does the whole family as well. Now, usually with the school-based counseling, that MFT or therapist that's providing school-based, they still only work with the child. That's the purpose of school-based. Now, if in the school-based, they discover also that the parent needs resources, that's when they'll also refer them to their mental health agency for additional small groups. Like for instance, we have a parent, I refer the child to our school-based mental health. We discovered during the process that he had ADHD and mom does too. So we're not getting the response that we need for him, the change in behavior that we need for him, because with the discovering, we have that mom is not following through also, which means she has it as well. And so the therapist has then sent everyone to her mental health agency to get further counseling and get further assistance, so that it can be more effective for the child when he's at school. And then we have our tier 3 supports, which are individual counseling and then referral to resources. So that's for our most severe students. So we really just need to make sure that what we have this multi-system in place so that students can access all the different supports, and that they can move through the different supports, and that one support should not stop because they are in a higher tier level, and that it promotes equity. That's super important. It's important that students with the system, it shows using our data that we are we have a path and we have a rhyme to our reason for giving them the supports that they need. The LCAP and in the school plan, which we talked about on our first assignment, that is where you list what you're doing for your school counseling and comprehensive school counseling program. If you are not in your school plan and the counselor isn't providing resources, this is a way that our position can be eliminated, because a school plan drives the process. And so the principal will add funding to that school plan. How many people are familiar with the school plan? Anybody? Okay, good. All right, so lots of people are familiar with it. Have you had direct contact, meaning that you help and assist write it, or are you just aware of it?
Just aware of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just aware of it.
Where?
Okay, as a school counselor, you'll begin to write it. And it's important because you're writing a goal, and you're writing a goal to highlight your school counseling program. Okay, so in there, that goal will go under school climate, and you will be writing that section. And usually attendance falls under that, our school program. So then that's a separate goal as well. And then there may be other goals that school counselors will help to be written into to create that area. Okay. So let's see, what else do I want to highlight? Okay. So we want to have a better impact on our students' success through use of data, and we're going to focus on using data to create and monitor our students as they need the different types of support. And that's the most important part. Right. Well, let's see. So,
Sir, Professor,
yes,
can I ask a question?
absolutely.
Is that okay, time?
Yeah.
So I know for the last assignment, I work at a Catholic prep school. They had no data. It was super, super scattered. And then when I went back to Mission High, it seems scattered. So just because I don't know the public schools as well, and a lot of what you're saying makes so much sense around having the data drive everything. Who in a normal kind of public school setting is supposed to do the data collection? Is it the principal? Is it they hire an outside consultant? What's the way that you get really good data typically at a public school?
So our data is usually collected at the site, but they'll tell us the tools to use to collect the data through the district process, right? So if we're looking at academics, we're using, it could vary from, for example, right now we are using Ames Web for academics, okay? So Ames Web does our initial assessment. We test the entire school. So obviously that's a tier 1 academic. From there, it's going to drive, because we have learning loss mitigation teachers that are that provide small group instruction based on the level of the student. Now, the district chooses who, after the assessment, who the learning loss mitigation teachers will qualify for their small group. So they have a range, and the principal has no say in that at all. Now, that's not always how it's been, but that's how it's been for the last 2 years. Okay, they have a whole principal that oversees the learning loss mitigation teachers. So that principal is responsible for educating them, showing them how to do the assessment, and then driving their small group instruction. Okay, and giving them the tools that they'll use and to in their small group, right? So that's just a small component of it, and it's just one aspect. Now, at the site, the principal then will work with the regular classroom teachers doing similar things. And then also you have coaches that have been trained, and they also report to someone in the district office, and they are there to know the curriculum for all the grade levels. So at an elementary, you've got to know TK all the way to fifth. And you have to be able to provide, okay, so I have a fifth grader who's reading at a TK level. So you call in your coaches, and your coaches will then provide the interventions according to the district level because they've been trained on that. So that's basically how it is. Now, that's just my district, not all districts. I'm a really small district, but these are the changes that have been made over time. It wasn't as prescriptive as it is today from when we started. When I started as an elementary school teacher, we had these big, long sheets of paper that said, check off the box if they met the standard. And then you put that, you folded it up, you put it in the queue, and then you gave them their report card. And so you based that on your test that you gave out of the textbooks, and that was it. Now we're much more fancy, and we can get the data through multiple tools. We also we have supportive materials. There was a time where they told us we couldn't use outside materials. You could only use this, and you couldn't use anything else to support your instruction. That's not so today. Today, you can use other things. You just have to be able to show how it goes together with the district level curriculum. Now, you can't veer off and do what you want to do, but you have to stick with that. Okay. So what school counseling was missing, we were doing the hit or miss, kind of like the olden days. And so we wanted to be more prescriptive in how we're pulling those small groups, for what areas, academics, social, emotional. So for me, the academics isn't in the elementary level, not so much. I have very little participation with that. Mostly SSTs are mine. Because as the coordinator for the student success team meetings, that's where I do the academic level. And then for college and career, mine is mostly exposure. In elementary, you're just going to try to expose. But some teachers will do a tier 1, meaning they'll have some kind of event when we have that theme that comes up in the book on your community or careers or something to that nature. And so you're constantly weaving that in. And then SEL, we are a trauma-informed and SEL campus. So I'm trying to weave that in much more, because the data shows for our district that students are dysregulated more so than they are regulated. And so we are focusing on that. And so the school counselors' data indicates that we need to do much more SEL to ensure that our students are coming to school more regulated and able to do their academics. Okay, because like we were on a 2-hour lockdown today. And that's very typical for us, I mean, it was our community that was in distress. And so we had to lock down to be safe. Okay. And so, that caused a lot of problems, so, and it triggers, it's a trigger for many of our students of experiences when the school's not in place and the same things are happening outside in the community. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with my PowerPoint. All right. So, what is social emotional learning, and how do we know that our brain is dysregulated, and what should we do about it? So, our childhood PTSD is the dysregulation of our brains. When we're calm, our brain's activity is even, and it's driving our emotions and our body responses, like our heart rate variability. And it is even and very predictable. With dysregulation, our thinking, behavior, heart rate, and breathing becomes very erratic. So we really need to make sure that understanding when a child's dysregulated and how to regulate them. So this slide just kind of goes over a child with PTSD, how they're dysregulated, and it just kind of gives you a clear example of why this child is not, they could come in, it could be a great day, but if they're coming in dysregulated, it is very difficult for them to be able to absorb the information that's in front of them. So we really need to start thinking about how to get them back regulated so that they can hear what's happening. So that's why we have all these different activities, the greeting, some of those things that help us as soon as the student arrives in school, how they're able to kind of start to calm down. Because obviously it may not be anything that anyone has said or done. It's just, it's an experience that comes across them. And there's anything that could be a trigger for that traumatic, memory. It could be driving to school. It could be seeing something on the way to school, walking, hearing someone say something, and then trying to get them to regulate themselves. Some students are in tune with their emotions and their well-being. And then some students don't know what to do. Their heart starts to rate, their stomach starts to feel funny, and they just begin to cry. And they're not able to articulate because nothing really happened. They just feel funny. So when we're in that dysregulated, we have this high adrenaline, and it gives us the fear of fight or flight. So today we have a little boy who has high anxiety, and he is deathly afraid of phones, intercoms, radios, anything. So imagine when the lockdown occurred, we hit the bell, and how he was dysregulated. So since we've done it on in practices, we've been able with this particular student to say he has earphones. We say we're going to do this drill. Once we complete the drill, you'll be okay. We can talk him through it when he knows that it's a drill. Today was not a good day because it wasn't a drill. So he just flew, and he ran. And so when he ran outside, and we couldn't keep him inside. So people were trying to get a hold of him because we were locking down the campus to ensure that no one was outside. And then we were able to we had to like literally pick him up and take him into safety. So once we're dysregulated, it could take us hours, even days before our brains can come back regulated. He never re-regulated. We just had to continue to distract him with videos and because he was still very heightened and he was afraid the bell was going to go off again. He was afraid something was happening. And so we just kept his earphones on to just tried to make everything look normal so he could come back, but he didn't re-regulate. So, and then also when we dysregulate, that's why we see some of our students who feel dysregulated getting involved in cigarettes, vaping, because that's a means for them, and it's an unhealthy habit for them to re-regulate themselves. And when they become risky, reckless, or even maybe increasing, having sex, all those things, and then all the consequences that happen after that. So we want to make sure that we help them to figure out how to re-regulate. So here's some signs, and when they're feeling like, if they feel spaced out or lost for words, can't remember where they are, that's a sign that they're dysregulated, and we might need to kind of intervene. Feeling scattered or trying to do everything at one time and finishing nothing. We see this with our students sometimes in the classroom. You're tripping over things, dropping things, losing things. Your voice and facial expressions are flat, or you're in rage, or you can't feel parts of your body. I've had kids say that to me. I can't feel my hands, and I'm like, it's warm. I can't feel my mouth, and sometimes we immediately go to, are you getting sick? But it could be a traumatic episode. So here's some quick fixes to re-regulate the brain and stopping. Like you can being emotionally and physically dangerous, refraining from driving, making decisions, discussions with everybody. So a lot of times when we're trying to get that student to re-regulate, asking them to participate or keep moving on or trying to become normal in the day, they probably need to just completely stop, take a moment, do some meditation or some breathing before they resume their regular activities. Stamping the feet on the floor, saying right, left, right, left, right, left, as they strike, that kind of helps your, kind of re-regulate your brain. Taking deep breaths and focusing, using our mindfulness strategies, eating something like protein, and pressing your tongue to the back of your teeth, sitting down and feeling the weight of yourself on a chair, washing your hands and feeling the water and the soap, getting a good squeeze or a hug. And we see that like sometimes when we hold, one of the ways we were able to get him to stop running was we just had to hold him and rock him. And he's a big boy, he's third grader. And just keep him kind of that warmth of that hugging feeling really, really helped him. So what is SEL? It's the process of self-awareness, self-control, interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and all the places that we go. And the more we have these social emotional skills, the better we're able to cope with everyday challenges and benefit academically, professionally, and socially. And then we're able to problem solve. Some of the things that we're seeing when students are not, they're consistently in traumatic events and experiencing dysregulation, they're not great problem solvers. And you're like, well, what did you say? Like the students aren't able to make self-discipline, self-manage. And so we really need to teach the skills on how to get back to that. So 3 things to know about social emotional learning. It's a foundation for most of our most pressing priorities. It helps our young people and adults learn practices and skills that set them up for academic success, fulfilling careers, healthy relationships, and responsible civic engagement. The research is extremely clear that it leads schools to positive outcomes and includes better, and the students have better academic performance. And there's a strong decrease in stress and anxiety. So this is one of the reasons why districts are purchasing curriculums such as Second Step, and that was mentioned as we were talking. Second Step is one of those curriculums that when everybody teaches it, everyone starts to learn these strategies and being able to decrease their stress and anxiety, and that there's no one size fits all approach, that it can bring families and schools and communities together to make sure that everybody has a caring relationship. So you'll see more of that, so that students can learn to thrive and grow. All right. So the SEL components are their core areas, and Castle has most of the research on SEL. And so I'll share that with you in just a moment, but it also helps to address forms of inequity and empower young people to have to thrive in schools and contribute to safe and healthy and just communities. So I have a couple of videos I wanted to share with you from that.
I had a quick question. Would we be able to have access to those slides?
Absolutely. Mhm. Okay, so here's a couple of SEL activities.
I need your help. Just can't do it alone. Can't do it without you guys. What should be our SEL goals for this math lesson? Think about math. How is it different? How is it the same? What's always true? What's a good SEL goal for us? McCarthy? Balanced sharing. Okay, we're gonna keep that balanced sharing. Sometimes we just have to quiet down and listen to others, and sometimes we have to encourage ourselves to speak up when we wanna just sit there. What's another great SEL goal for this math lesson? Let's see, Dylan, what do you got? Cooperation. Cooperation, okay. Always a fan of cooperation. One more, Ada.
Listening to others with no interruption.
No interruption. Listen. No. Thank you. Okay, I love it. Listening with no interruptions. Are you ready?
200 minutes before the battery ran out. The battery lasts 4 hours. No. How do you know? Because 6, 12, 18, 24. Yeah.
You know what I saw that I loved? I noticed that as one was reading, everyone else was circling and underlining. It's just become this like second nature for you guys, and I'm so proud of you about that. How do we feel? I see a lot of thumbs up. That makes me feel good too. If there's a moment when you and your neighbor don't agree, you have 2 different answers, what could you say to your neighbor? What's a good phrase that you could say so you're not saying, you're wrong, because we don't do that in here. What do you say, McCarthy?
Hey, let's look at this problem together and see how we can find an answer.
Let's look at this problem together and see if we can find the answer. Excellent. What's another suggestion, Marcus?
I think you need to recheck your answer.
Maybe recheck your answer. That's for sure that you're right. What if you're the one that made the mistake? Maybe you could say, I maybe need to check my answer too. Or let's both check our answers. Dylan, you got one more?
How about we both look over that to see if one of us got it right?
How about we both look over it to see if one of us got it right? Or maybe we both got it wrong and we both need to look at it. Thank you. Excellent. I want you and your group to work it out together, talk it out, check your answers, make sure that you both agree on the strategy, and solve. I will see you back in, I think we could do it in 4 minutes? Yeah, let's try it. I'll check in with you in 4. Go.
So 7 times 5 is 35. You can't do 7 times 6. 7 times 6 is 42. So you have to do 7 times 5. Yeah, remainder. 5 and remainder 6.
Thumbs up, you're ready to do this on your own. Thumbs to the side. I think I got this. Not totally sure, may need some help. Thumbs down. I would like to see one more problem. Okay. If you would like to see one more problem, we've got a table here we can work at. Meet me here. If you think you're on the side, you want to try it on your own, try it on your own. If you're ready to roll, take your time. Don't rush. There's no prize for being first. Make sure you're doing it correctly. Go. Will you scoot your chair over to the table? Really appreciate your hard work. I thank you very much for all your honesty and just being great. So thank you for that.
All right, thoughts on that one? So that one was a math lesson. Oops. That one was a math lesson on incorporating SEL, and she went through the processes. And this is just how we are able to show, Jessica, I'll get you in just a sec, how we're able to show SEL being incorporated throughout the day and, through their group time. So that was their, she delivered the lesson, obviously, and then working in pairs to see if they could do it so they're not alone. Then when they're ready to complete the independent practice part, then she had small group for those who thought they could do it or needed more help or more support with her. And then she probably rotate her group. So this is just an excellent example of that. Go ahead, Jessica.
You kind of said what what I was gonna say about how she was integrating it, and like she partnered them. She did it. She didn't call anybody out specifically. She allowed them to kind of demonstrate where their levels were at and partnered them up to kind of as like a buddy system. You know what I mean, and kind of utilize that buddy system. And I do something kind of the same with the thumbs up, thumbs down, but with like numbers. And it was a very collaborative effort as opposed to like the teacher giving them the answers, which sometimes I know teachers can do just because they don't have like the patience necessarily to wait for the kids to give the answers. She just made it very collaborative for the kids, which I really enjoyed watching. So, yeah.
And one thing I noticed was their class sizes are a lot smaller than ours. So sometimes I think that when we show videos, certain videos, I think people say, oh yeah, well, and they go immediately to the things that are not there. But I've also seen the same thing at my school. It's just a matter of just being persistent with it and just making sure that you stick with it. Julia?
I want to be just mindful too, because I speak a lot, and it's hard on Zoom to make sure we're hearing everybody's voice. So that's just an intention I want to put out for myself. But I think the 2 things that she did that are really great was that she gave them a lot of choice. And also, instead of, she was so positive, like, you're great, this is great. But there was a moment when she's like, how does it feel? So I think effective SEL isn't us just praising and coaching. It's getting kids to the point where they're kind of seeing their wins, and kind of, even with, if it's body regulation or whatever, that they can speak about their experience so the shift can happen.
Thank you, Julia. That was well said. So we'll, I think that's also important, is just checking in with them how they feel. And sometimes as a school counselor, I think sometimes we have to go in and support the teachers who are a little bit more reluctant to get into the touchy-feely aspect of it, because it's needed. And especially if you have a lot of dysregulation happening in the classroom, maybe just that extra set of eyes and will help the child to re-regulate and then do more work that moment or that time than they ever have. But it's just that simple connection that you made with them when you were in the room. So I really encourage counselors to go into the room and support. All right. So we have another one here.
Part of our focus in terms of SEL is to become more aware of our emotions and reactions. So Rashad is the character who gets
abused by the police officer.
Do you see these things happening?
I've seen it happen to others.
Because our kids participate in daily advisory, they feel more connected to our school community. They feel like they know themselves and others around them better. And we have huge accomplishments in our kids' learning outcomes.
We're going to begin just with 2 minutes of mindfulness.
The nest is our daily advisory.
Think about inhaling and exhaling.
We're really reflecting on what we are proud of about ourselves.
We're really focused on 2 things. One is literacy.
Right after this part right here.
And the other one is social emotional learning.
I really want you to think on who you are, what you represent, things that you're going through. At Procone, we want to increase discussion-based classrooms. A class is never going to look discussion-based if the kids aren't comfortable talking in front of each other because they're worried they'll be made fun of or they're worried that they'll have the wrong answer. So we build family mindset, getting to know each other, talking through goals, talking through setbacks, the good things of life, the hardships of life. Y'all just put in your own words. That's like the best part. Like,
I'm supposed to
explain something I don't know how to do. I don't know.
We can talk about anything we want, tell our teacher just everything. You get to know other students better and create a bond with each other.
I'm proud to be a strong woman. I'm proud of being a volleyball player. And I am proud of Miss Tilly and her hard work.
And then the second part of the nest is spent reading a novel together.
We are going to dig back into this book.
Really great novels lead to great conversations, and they're perfectly aligned with social emotional learning.
And each chapter is...
I believe literacy is a civil rights issue in this country. We consider our citizens literate at 9th grade or higher, and the vast majority of my kids are below that. And that means they're not engaging our society, our democracy, in a way that is empowering and participatory. So if there is one thing we put a lot of energy around, it is trying to help our kids become readers.
We are reading a book called All American Boys.
I didn't want to hear my father preach about how young Black people lack pride and integrity, making us easy targets.
We want to broaden kids' capacity to enjoy reading by having deep conversations about the subjects and themes that kids live out.
The first story was about a kid accused of stealing from the store on this side.
So in the middle of page 100, you've got this cop who represents this abuse of authority, and you had a reaction to that.
People abuse their authority when they get it.
Conversation today was about mistrust between authority and community. When our kids read that, there's a guttural reaction that takes place.
Like, it just make us so mad. This boy, he got beat up by a police officer. When I heard that, like, I instantly, it just draw me into it because, like, that's something like I see, I go through every day.
Like, a lot of this stuff is actually happening.
Right, like there's a lot of police brutality going on. Sometimes it kind of releases some rage.
That still goes on to me.
So it's access to text and giving them the ability to face each other, look each other in the eye, and have conversations around significant topics.
I want to say altercation, but then
The Nest lays the ground for academic learning. It holds kids to higher standards and to higher expectations.
in this book,
It's a time to build community and to make certain every kid has at least one individual in the building that invests personally in his or her best.
Our Nest is a family.
Somos familia.
I feel like I could talk about anything I need to in here.
Looking at the data, they've grown in learning and have become people who are increasingly more aware of who they are and care for others. All of that is directly linked to social emotional learning and the work that happens in the Nest.
You guys have changed and grown up so much this year, and I'm so lucky to know you.
Thoughts? What were your thoughts about that one? I chose that one because advisory for middle and high school is something that happens. It's a block, it's easy to do. And it helps them to, like they said, create that sense of family and work on, as she stated, most of her students are coming in below grade level in their reading. And then we're expecting them to be able to get through all of those high school courses that require that level of reading or higher. And so building this helps them to perform in the schools and perform in their classrooms and build their confidence. So this is a good one. Anybody else have comments? Jackie?
I want to work there. Well, that's the first thing I thought of, honestly. I mean, just the fact that, and I work at a high school, so it's we have something called the Nest as well. But the big significance is the purpose of our Nest is for SEL, right? But they do more CBT, which is more cognitive, and usually the students that are there are students that are having bad days, instead of, basically it's kind of those regularly tardy students, those students that are, on a daily basis, maybe the teacher, has an issue with the student, they're clashing or whatnot, and they're sent there. So it's a shame that I love the way they utilize their Nest, absolutely, because it's not just, CBT, it's more of the whole aspect of reading a book together and, just that family thing. And it creates a safe space for them, be able to talk to each other, open up, and just relate to whatever they're doing, to each other, to the book. High school kids, especially with them, it's not cool to talk about certain things or they don't feel comfortable. So the only thing I noticed was the teachers themselves, and this is a big thing we're trying to push with our district. Obviously, majority of our teachers are white, right? And I think our staff should not, I think our staff should represent our student body, not completely, but at least for especially for restorative justice and equity purposes, it definitely should represent, and that doesn't happen. So it's hard for, I think, some people, even no matter, and no matter the color, the race, whatnot, it's harder to relate. I think they did a really good job at that, and talking to them, especially and they didn't seem to have a problem with talking to those teachers either. So and I don't want to keep going on, but I just really enjoyed that. I just really did. And I saw a lot of things that are positive for sure.
Great. Thank you for that. That was great input. And I think that we just want to kind of, really, really embrace empathy because, the truth is that, we're not going to necessarily match our student population. Our ethnicity, our background, our culture may not match that of the place where we're working. And so what we want to do is just empathize. So in a situation like that, by him being a great listener, by him being understanding, and just listening and being there for the students as they express their rage, and not telling them, not having the answer, will help. And he can still kind of get them to connect with him and bond with him, even though he's not of that same background. So, that's just something that we have to think. We can, because we're just not going to match all the time. Now, this is something that I did at my school, but this is not my school, but.
What were y'all discussing?
Nothing.
I've seen a lot of my kids this year, instead of just like exploding and getting really upset, they are aware of their emotions. And before lashing out, they will be like, okay, I need to go to the Peace Corner.
At Fall Hamilton, we have students who are currently experiencing some serious tragedy in their lives. When they walk through the door, they don't leave everything at the door. They bring it with them.
Do you need to take a break? Yeah?
So we're trying to build the capacity for them to be able to know what to do when they're frustrated or when they're angry. So we're using Peace Corners.
There is a Peace Corner in every classroom. That is a place that a student can go if they need a break, if they just need a timeout, they're having a hard time. There's going to be some comfy pillows or a bean bag. There'll be some fidgets, different things to help de-escalate that student.
If I get really frustrated and feel like I'm gonna yell, or get mad at somebody, I go to the Peace Corner and just calm down.
We set a 5-minute timer, so they know that they have 5 minutes to kind of cool down. If it's really bad and they need some extra time, I said they can flip it again and take their time.
My teacher has this sheet that you fill out. It tells you how you feel, what choice you made, and what should you do to make it better next time.
And there's also going to be some charts that talk about breathing or counting or different things a student can do to de-escalate in the moment. And at the end of that time, it's time to reintegrate with the rest of the students.
Every kid uses it, so it's not a place of stigma. It's a place that we allow students to utilize the strategies that we're teaching them.
Ready to go? I've seen a huge shift in just behavior. There's not as many outbursts, there's not as many arguments, because they've realized their emotions, they're understanding them, and they're able to make that decision to go sit down at the Peace Corner.
Thoughts on the Peace Corner. So that's now that can be in, any room actually. So I think that the Peace Corner, but I think that sometimes it's really helpful in the elementary levels. So they kind of learn that I need a moment kind of thing, and then coming back and then talking it through and giving them that opportunity, because, we still need to get them back in it. I wanted every classroom to have it. We do have it in each classroom, and I call it the calming corner. And then I provided them with the fidget toys and things that they can use there. And there's a box there for them. And it was really our goal to keep them in the classroom, because our kids wander, and they can wander for days and days on end. So then you have them outside more than you have them inside getting the information. So providing the calming corner, like she said, flipping it. I provided everybody with the stand timers and then flipping it. And then after 5 minutes, after a 10-minute time limit, we kind of said, well, they might call for a counselor, or they might call for them to come into our the calming room and just kind of talk it through a little bit more. They might need some more individualized attention in regards to what they're experiencing, and then go from there. Blair?
I was just gonna say, at my son's middle school, they have, it's called the Wellness Center, and it's a whole room, and he's new to the school and doesn't know anyone, and he loves it because during like awkward situations, like they have a brunch time and he doesn't know who to sit with, he knows he can go there and just like read his book and not feel like anybody's watching him, like anytime he feels like uncomfortable in a social situation, he just can go in there, and they're allowed to stay for 15 minutes, and they can come in and just, they have like a knitting corner, they have yarn, they can knit things. And I just think it's so amazing. Even when kids aren't maybe really upset and need to calm down, it's kind of like just somewhere he knows like a safe space that he doesn't have to feel like, oh, everybody's watching me, wondering why I'm sitting with no one because I don't know anyone yet, so I just think I love that they have it. I think it's been amazing for him. I think it's a great thing that everybody should have.
Good. That's excellent. And I created that instead of it being indoors, outdoors, because I think my students, the community that they live in, they're indoors 90% of the time and on the video thing. So I just need them to get some vitamin D and some sunshine, because we're fortunate to live in California where we can get that. So I really, really try to encourage that. So I bought a ton of games for students to play, and one of our playground supervisors are out there. So a lot of times as a school counselor, I'll go out there and play the games with them. They want to play Uno or something like that. So I'm modeling, because they'll say, can we come inside with you, Miss Bo? And I'm like, okay, I really want you outside. And then I'll go outside with them, play checkers or something. And then one thing leads to another. And then pretty soon I kind of say, well, did you invite her? So kind of building that, kind of making it feel a little bit more natural, because I have a lot of students who walk around alone or don't prefer. Then we also have that same area. So some kids don't want to play a game. They'd rather read a book. So that area is also that safe place for reading the book and the board game. So it's kind of that quiet environment, but everybody's doing a little bit of something different. So that's good. Okay, we're running out of time. So the rest of my PowerPoint went over Castle and the components for social emotional learning, and then gave a lot of more examples of different tools to use at the different grade levels. So I will share my PowerPoint with you for additional resources. The chapter talked a lot about, creating these different topics and activities for the 3 tiers. So lessons that you could do in a classroom according to elementary, middle, and high, and then how to do it. So, and the videos, they kind of, go a little bit more into that. So, that's all I have for this evening. Any questions or concerns, additional comments?
I just wanted to mention one thing. I liked what you're saying about the regulation. I had to host a personal or a professional development at the beginning of the year, because I work with students who come from trauma, and it talked a lot about that, how especially kids, their frontal lobe isn't developed, and when they're in trauma, they go to fight or flight, and it switches to the limbic system. And when it's in the limbic system, they're like incapable of learning anything new. And so our kids come in, especially in the area that I work in, and probably the areas that a lot of you guys work in, that they come in with trauma. And a lot of teachers are trying to teach them self-regulation in that moment. And that when it's like switched, their brains are like in fight or flight and the limbic switches on, that is the worst time to try to teach them anything. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of the teachers because it was within the contract, gen ed teachers have to be taught by a special ed teacher. And they had no idea. And this was like a huge aha moment for them. And it clicked. And it was kind of like a really powerful moment, especially since the area that we work in, a lot of them are coming in with trauma, to kind of recognize that, like, hey, like, this is probably why they're, one, acting the way that they're acting, and two, they're just not, it's not registering.
Yeah.
And so
I think the not registering is the key, because
Yeah.
a lot of times there are, everybody has their main goal. And as a classroom teacher, your main goal is to get the information out. And then not only that, but get some work samples back from that individual on how they're progressing on what you are teaching. And so when they can't absorb that information or do anything, some of them just freeze. They don't do anything. And so sometimes we're just like, you got to get started. You got to get started. We'll go here. And they see it as a level of disrespect because they're not moving or they're not doing what you're asking them to do. And so that's why I placed the calming corner in there. Like, do you need a moment? And then getting them to understand that, like, oh, maybe I do. And then going over there. And if you have the tools like a book or, something to color or something that kind of helps to re-regulate them, you can kind of slowly coax them out of the area and then get back to work. And, once they're regulated, but it's kind of hard if they're dysregulated and you're just kind of throwing things at them. And then the next thing, we do is we see it as a level. So now it's, I'm going to call your parents. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do
or
that,
it's a
which
lot
is
of threats.
Yeah.
They just go straight to, like, I'm threatening you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And they don't understand. They're in like full freeze mode. And then, like, I teach in a high school. And so they almost like, they don't offer them those very simple things to do because they think it's like too immature to do those things. But it's like, let them have like 5 minutes on their Chromebook. Let them, hey, do you need to go get some water? It's like simple things that they can do, but it is just so like dead set in that they have to get their curriculum and their lessons like taught, that they're just, it's not I guess what it is, it's just not something that they're trained to think about, or they should be trained to think about, but there's this expectation that they should come in, sit down and listen. And there isn't like the thought process that, like, you don't know what this kid went through and that they might just be in that flight or fight or freeze mode, and that just do a check-in. Just
Yeah, and
have
sometimes it's not as blatant. Like today with the lockdown, I had 2 students in the office with me because they were sent there. And she looked and she was talking to us like she was okay. She's a 5th grader, but she wasn't. I said, "Do you want to sit down?" And she's like, "No, I'd rather stand." She was going into the freeze, right? And then she said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, something's happening outside. We're not exactly sure. So we gotta, stay safe inside." And then I noticed her breathing was changing. I said, "Take deep breaths." And then the social worker was standing there because she was visiting me, and we were, it's our district social worker. And all she did was offer her her hand. And then that connection kind of calmed it down a little bit. So, we didn't ask her anything. We just kind of like, we noticed that she was about to dysregulate. And so we were just like, okay, let's just try to figure out little small things. And that's just something that happened really kind of quickly. But if you're not paying attention and you're rushing, or you're saying, go sit down, I need everybody sitting down, she would have gone into a total different place. And so once it's, and I was able to answer, and I was like, you're gonna, we're here with you. And she said, okay. And then I kept her from dysregulating.
Yeah.
So it's just something that I think that now my campus we've been trained as a group since 2016 with trauma-informed practices and moving into the SEL practice. So my staff is pretty sharp, but every year, as the district puts more requirements on the school teachers, they kind of drop that SEL stuff and just go right back to their rote stuff, which is natural for anyone. So, but your audience is still going through things that you're not going through. You came in, I mean, potentially sometimes, our teachers are going through things as well, but their focus when they're there is, this is my job, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to get, accomplished. But your audience, are they ready for it? And some people are better equipped to deal with that and others are not. So sometimes that's our role as school counselors, to go into the classroom and help along the way with that. And just decrease the numbers, honestly, especially when you have those students that are having a difficult time. All right, everyone, thank you for a wonderful session today. And again, I will upload the PowerPoint. And thank you for all your contributions and participation in the class today. And I will see you week 5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Have a
night.
good night.